Yo, what's up, Steeler fans? This is Bishop Ball back. It's been a long time, but I'm back to just give my fan perspective on some of the things that's been going on with the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I think I've just been sitting around watching what's been going on. The last time I think I talked to you guys, I was supposed to do a mock draft or a draft review. And I never got around to it because I had some things come up in my, personal life, and I've been more focused on some of my inspiration videos. So if you are a believer or even just intrigued or like inspiration videos, tune into my inspirational playlist and check out some of the shorts and videos that I have coming up. And then I'm going to start getting into other sports too that I like, that I enjoy. That way I can talk about them knowledgeably because, a lot of people talk about things they don't know, and I just don't want to be one of those people. So it's been eventful because for the longest we weren't getting much. Everything was Aaron Rodgers. And it got to a point where I don't want to say I was getting tired of hearing about Aaron Rodgers, but one thing that I was getting tired of some of the things I was hearing about the nationalists, the national media, ESPNs like the Joy Taylors and the Keyshawn Johnsons and the Paul Pierce, who shouldn't be talking about football, but that's what he gets paid to do. And people like Nick Wright and Louis Riddick and of course, Stephen A. Smith always talking. That guy, anyway. So I'm just going to give my opinion on three things. So this one is about chaos, contentment, and how that factors into what the Pittsburgh Steelers did in the draft class. So let me start with the draft class. So I really, really liked our draft picks. I think we had, 7 picks. We got Derek Harmon, Caleb Johnson, Jack Sawyer, Y.A. Black, Will Howard, and Carson Bruner. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 picks. And I liked our picks, and I'll tell you why. First of all, let's start with Derek Harmon. Now, the whole drama behind Shedeur Sanders, and I'm not sure if I had went over this in one of my videos, but I didn't want any quarterback in this draft number 1 overall. And my main reason was this. Anybody who says, and this is for Steelers fans included, I don't understand what you're watching, I don't understand your problem, a lot of you all are fed up, I get that, I totally get that. A lot of you are fed up with the decision making and blah, 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 and Mike Tomlin like this. And I'm not a Mike Tomlin hater. I'm also not a Mike Tomlin supporter. He has his good qualities. He has his bad qualities. He's horrible with clock management. Sometimes I think his ego and his pride gets in the way of what's doing right. I feel like after a certain point in time, during that 5 to 6 game slot, he should have went back to Justin Fields because, after the defenses got used to Russell Wilson, he either became a dump down QB or the moonball quarterback. So he was a check down man, moonball. He didn't use the whole field. He didn't use the middle of the field. He wasn't properly using his tight ends. He wasn't reading the defenses fast enough. He was holding the ball too long. He can't get outside the pocket anymore, which is where he makes his big plays. And he can't see over the offensive line at 5'10", 5'11". So standing in that pocket, can't move like he used to, holding on the ball too long, just caused more problems. Sometimes the offensive line was bad, and then sometimes Russell Wilson made the situation worse. At least with Justin Fields in there, you had somebody that could escape the rush. Now, this whole thing about Justin Fields, everybody wanting to keep him, and he would have been better than Aaron Rodgers. I really don't understand how you could claim to know anything about football and say anything as stupid as that. Now, he may have a potential better upside because Aaron Rodgers is 42 years old, or he will be 42 years old at some point during the season. But Justin Fields has not shown us anything whatsoever that's going to tell us that he's going to be a franchise quarterback. Okay, he still plays the game with average or below average anticipation. Yeah, he only threw one interception in 6 games. I've seen defenses drop at least 4 or 5 of those interceptions. So they've dropped them, they've misread them. He was fortunate that the ball wasn't dropped more than what it was. Another thing, he can't read defenses. So once they take away his first read, it seems like he's bewildered for a minute. And he doesn't make the quick read. He can't make the quick read because if you go back and look at some of the all 22 tapes, there's wide receivers running. Same thing with Kenny Pickett. Same exact thing. So do I think that Justin Fields could be a franchise quarterback? I mean, it's possible. He has the intangibles, but he's been in the league, almost 5 years now? And we haven't seen anything that says he's a franchise quarterback. 5 years. I understand he's had multiple offensive coordinators. He's never had the weapons. Supposedly he hasn't had the weapons, even though he has some good weapons in Chicago. That whole coaching staff and regime is questionable. I understand that too. But what has he shown that makes you think that he's better than Aaron Rodgers right now? Because Aaron Rodgers has a better arm. He makes better decisions. And people could say, well, he went 5-12 with the New York Jets. Stop it. The New York Jets went 5-12. He didn't do that by himself. You know how many passes were dropped? He still completed 64% of his passes. He still threw for 4,000 yards. He still had 28 touchdowns and 13 interceptions. Okay, yeah, so his play wasn't that great coming off an Achilles injury where he had missed a whole year of football. It wasn't that great. So I understand that. But I'm not going to take up a lot of your time talking about that. Let me go directly into the draft. I'm just saying that's the reason why I wasn't particularly excited about any of the quarterbacks in the draft, because I feel like our team is some fortifying away from being a legit contender. And there's no way that you can tell me that after watching what you watched last season, that you couldn't see during the second half of the season that defense was wore out. It had got to the point where TJ Watt was facing double teams and being chipped continuously every down. And the Steelers refused to move him around so he couldn't be targeted. They refused, literally refused. Now, how is it that you can watch these games and see these things and come up with the same thought processes? Oh, we don't have players, or we don't have people, when they dominated? Look, how many games did Justin Fields play in where you said to yourself, oh, this is a dominating offense? How many times did Justin Fields play in a game, and how many games did he play where he was the starting quarterback, and you said to yourself, this is a above average offense? I think 2 games they scored more than 20 something points. 1 game they scored 30. And one of those games that they scored 30 points, 28, 30 points against the Cowboys, they lost that game. So when he was 6-2 as a starter, 4-2. If I'm correct, it was 6-2. He was 6-2 as a starter. Most of them games was 13-10, 17-10, 16-10. That defense held offenses. People say, oh, well, they didn't play against it. They held Justin Herbert in check. They held Bo Nix in check. That same Bo Nix who took the Broncos to the playoffs. He held them in check. You see what I'm saying? How many times have the Steelers come out in their first 3 or 4 drives? They gained either under 10 yards or under 20 yards and had to punt. How many fumbles did Justin Fields drop? How many times did he drop the ball? So we needed to shore up that run defense because besides Cam Hayward and Keanu Benton, we don't have any starting caliber defensive linemen. We don't. We needed to solidify that defensive line. We needed to get Peyton Wilson another year under his belt so he can become a complete every down linebacker because during his collegiate career, he didn't spend much time playing run defense. And that's something that he had to get accustomed to is running downhill, tracking down the ball carrier in the backfield. He had to get accustomed to that. And you would know these things if you spent like some quality time listening to a lot of the analysts who sit back and watch his collegiate tapes over and over and over, dissecting all of his plays and all of his movements so they can see where his upside is and what he needs to work on. If you spend time doing that, then you will see some of these things. Now look, hey, I can admit, I don't have all the time in the world just like anybody else. A lot of us are fathers. We got full-time jobs. And then we have chores to do around the house. So like me, I don't have time to sit around and watch every football team in the NFL so that I can give like some type of, commentary on every football team in the NFL because I got bills to pay, just like you. And so, I don't have time to sit through going through all the players' draft day analysis and all of their collegiate tapes and all of their all 22s. But the things that I do have time to is to focus on my love, my team, the black and gold. And so when I am listening to the radio casually or watching a YouTube video or listening to a YouTube video, I'm listening to Dale Lally and Matt Williamson and DK and Ramon Foster and Arthur Moats and Wes Euler. I'm listening to these guys talk about what they talk about because they've been in the business long and this is what they get paid to do. To spend all day, every day, dissecting sports, listening to other people, talking to their insiders, paying attention to the tape and the combines and the pro days. And so Derek Harmon at number 21 overall, our first round pick was the best pick for it. We're talking about a 6'4", quick 313-pound beast. And he only had 5 sacks in his senior year. However, they said he should have had 5 more on missed tackle. He just gets there so fast and misjudges the quarterback or the ball carrier in the backfield. He should have had more tackles. He should have had more sacks. And as he begins to polish his game and get under control, he's going to get better at targeting or hitting his target and slowing down and not getting in the backfield and playing so out of control. But the quickness that he displays off the ball is what we need. And we need another defensive lineman to take pressure off of our 2 and eventually be prepared to take Cam Hayward's place when he retires. Because he doesn't have too many more years left, maybe 1 or 2. Then our second pick. Now, our second pick, if you've been watching any of my videos, which not a lot of people have, but if you have watched them, you will definitely know that I wanted Caleb Johnson overall. I wanted him or I wanted Quinshon Johnson. And for him to be there at number 83 overall with the 3rd round pick was a godsend. Because this brother is smooth and he's big and he's fast. And there are people that say, he's not fast, he's another Najee Harris. What are you thinking about? Do you know anything about football? Do you watch football? Caleb Johnson doesn't play anything like Najee Harris. Nothing like Najee Harris. And I like Najee Harris. I think that he didn't get a fair shake because this offensive line that he played behind, horrible. However, the scheme that Arthur Smith has implemented is a perfect fit because that's what Caleb Johnson does well. One cut, hit the hole. Zone blocking scheme is meant to open up a particular hole or particular holes, give the running back, and as a former running back, I understand this, give the running back a choice, and the running back chooses to make the right cut and go through the hole quick as possible. And that's what Caleb Johnson excels at. And he's big and he's strong and he's fast. Now, if you look at his draft time, one thing about paying attention to the experts, they break down and give you information about things that you normally wouldn't know. Because if you was to see that Caleb Johnson ran a 4.5 40 in a 40-yard dash, you would say, okay, well, he's slow. And some people say that he's got Le'Veon Bell type speed. Le'Veon Bell was running a 4.6. Not the same thing. Caleb, now they say the reason why Caleb Johnson only was clocked at a 4.57, I believe it was. He may be clocked at a 4.57, but he was also clocked at running one of the fastest times in the 100 meters, I believe, projected 22 miles an hour speed, which is fast. So what that tells you is that when he comes off the blocks, because he's not a sprinter, when he comes out of the blocks, he doesn't come off the blocks as strong. So his first 20 yards is not as strong as his last 20 yards. By the time he gets in full speed and picks up speed, he's gone. And if you watch the tape, how many defenses he ran away from? Now, is he the fastest running back in the draft? No, he's not Ashton Gentry. No, he's not. But he's faster than Le'Veon Bell. He's faster than Najee Harris. So his top end speed is fast. And he's big, 6'1", 224 pounds, and strong. Love it. Now, the third round pick, Jack Sawyer. I don't know much about Jack Sawyer, and I'm an Ohio State fan. I like Ohio State. And, I know a lot of people are going to say, well, oh, you're a Steelers fan. We don't permit that. Nobody in Steelers Nation can tell me who to root for. Don't tell me that. Don't act like I am a Cleveland Browns fan or a Baltimore Ravens fan or a Cincinnati Bengals fan. First of all, I don't root for the rivals. And we're talking about college football. And I've been an Ohio State fan since I've been 6 years old. I'm also a Pitt Panthers fan, and I'm also a Penn State Nittany Lions fan, depending on who has the better chance to win the national championship. And to be honest with you, I don't really pay too much attention to Pitt. So it's just Penn State and Ohio State. And so all the games that I've watched Ohio State play last year, I don't even remember who Jack Sawyer is. And they say he's highly talented, was one of the stalwarts of that defense. I felt like we should have picked a wide receiver at that spot, especially considering that during the whole time, the Steelers knew they had intentions to trade George Pickens. They knew that, and they still picked Jack Sawyer. Now, I understand he's a good fourth, but unless they plan on trading Nate Herbig or getting rid of Alex Highsmith, I don't think that was an immediate need that they needed at that time, especially for a team that's supposed to be going all in. So that confused me. Y.A. Black, another big defensive tackle who needs some polish, but he's immovable. He has all the traits that we need. We needed to solidify that defensive line and infuse talent because we have players. Montavious Adams is not getting it. He wasn't getting it. And Isaiah Loudermilk wasn't getting it. he wasn't getting it. Them guys can barely get on the field, and they don't even make barely splash plays, and they were getting pushed around all the way. And then any of you that have been watching my build videos, I've been a big fan of Will Howard because of his physical traits. And we got him in the 6th round, and most of my mock drafts, we only did like 3 of them. I drafted Will Howard in the 3rd round every time. Now, that's taken in consideration that a lot of times I made trades back 2 or 3 times to get the 2nd round pick because I wanted Caleb Johnson in the 2nd round, and I took Will Howard in the 3rd round whenever he was available. We got him in the 6th round. And you know, I wasn't an advocate of Shedeur Sanders. And it didn't have anything to do with his father. It had to do with, I just didn't see anything special about him. And you can say whatever you want to say about Will Howard, but he led that team to the national championship. And I watched those playoff games intently. And that boy played well, very well. You said, well, he had more weapons. Yeah, but he played against better competition too. He played against better competition. And Shedeur Sanders played against worse competition. And sometimes he held the ball too long and took sacks. And a lot of times he threw the ball up, and Travis Hunter made him look good on those plays. And I'm not saying that Shedeur Sanders can't play, but I'm just saying that even if you pick him as high as they were talking about picking him, we had other needs on this team that surrounded him. We've got 3 or 4 Pro Bowlers or potential Pro Bowlers on our defense. At the time, we had George Pickens, and we had just traded for DK Metcalf. We just drafted back-to-back years 2 top-tier offensive tackles. In the 2nd round, we drafted a premier center, one of the top 3 centers in the draft last year, to solidify our offensive line, and they need to gel together. And we're going to go out and get a 2nd-tier college quarterback that didn't even play in the premier leagues, in the premier conferences that are considered for national championship playoff series. We didn't get one of them. So no rookie quarterback has ever won a Super Bowl. And very few rookie quarterbacks have taken them teams deep into the playoffs. And we need a quarterback that can move the chains, keep us in games, give our defense a rest. You know, that's one thing that I don't think that we understand about quarterback play in Aaron Rodgers. We don't need MVP Aaron Rodgers. We need Aaron Rodgers to keep the chains moving and let some of these pieces that we have do the rest of the work. Make quick decisions. Don't take a bunch of sacks. Utilize the tight ends. Give receivers a chance to make plays. Make the quick read. Throw the ball to the open man when they're coming across the field. Utilize weapons like Calvin Austin, who runs a 4.3, and you see him streaking across the field, and you got 2 quarterbacks, one that's a borderline Hall of Famer, and another one that's a top 10 draft pick or top 11 draft pick, and they can't hit this man wide open because either they can't read the defense or see over the defense, or they're trying to hit the big play all the time instead of keeping the chains moving. You know, just think about if we have an average of 4 more drives every game that lasts at least 4 minutes a drive, how much rest that would give the defense, how much fresher they would be in the second half of the season. Or just imagine being able to play with a significant lead, a 10-point lead, and letting our defensive ends tee off. Or how about we get consistent pressure from the middle of our defensive lines, which allows who you guys keep talking about, Minka Fitzpatrick is stealing money from the Steelers. He's not the same. This man is back there playing center field because the coaches are scared to give up the big play. He's not even being put in the positions that he had been put in before because the defensive line talent is not the same. It's not. And if you don't know that, do you know football? And then Carson Bruner, Mark Bruner's son. That's a throw-in pick, but he has some intangibles. I don't even know if he'll make the team. And then we have Dante Kent, who's coming in at the last pick in the 7th round, and we'll see how that goes. He has some intangibles. He plays some slot corner, and so I guess he'll be in the mix for that slot corner, and we'll see how that goes. So now I want to go into, and I like that draft. Now I want to go into a little bit into George Pickens, just a little bit, because I'm not going to take up too much of your time. George Pickens. So as we know, a couple months ago, we traded George Pickens to the Dallas Cowboys for a 3rd round pick and a 5th and a 6th pick swap. I think we gave them their 6th, they gave us their 5th. And would I have liked to see George Pickens and DK Metcalf play? Yes, I would have. But I understand why the Steelers traded him. His attitude sucks. Intolerable. He's a cancer. And then he does things on the field that's just outright intolerable. Not running on plays, not going into the game, taking plays off, not being aware during plays, half running plays, showing up for meetings late, consistently, showing up to games late, throwing tantrums on the sideline. And then you're going into a contract year where this gentleman is about to ask for $29 million a year, and he's only cracked 1,000 yards once. So when you get the opportunity to get that pick for him in a contract year, and who knows the conversations they were having behind closed doors. So publicly he says he didn't ask to be traded, but what was his attitude like? What was his agent's attitude like? Like, were they coming in demanding that, oh, we're going to hold in until we get a contract? Steelers know they weren't paying him. Forget the comp pick. The comp pick, for those of you who are arguing the position of a comp pick, that comp pick comes in 2027. When you can get a 3rd round pick, the same pick, and swap a pick and improve that 6th round pick to a 5th round pick, regardless of where it's slotted, in 2026, when you need those picks, just in case you want to pony up first this year, first in 2027, a 2nd and a 3rd, or 2nd and 3rd and a 4th, to try to move up from 24th overall or 25th overall to number 10 overall, and get one of these 7 or 8 projected 1st round quarterbacks in this draft, who I'm particularly keen on, Taylor Johnson. But that's neither here or there. So we could argue with the George Pickens, but to me it's a moot point. He's gone. Forget the what ifs, ands, and buts. That if it was the 5th, we'd all be lit. But it's not. Now, Aaron Rodgers. I touched on Aaron Rodgers a little earlier. I'm glad he's here. And initially, I didn't want the Steelers to go after him, but once George Pickens and Russell Wilson was gone, I was all for it. And the reason why was because he was the best quarterback available. Now, I wanted Justin Fields because of the upside. I did. However, I wasn't ready to just commit to Justin Fields $30 million in guaranteed money for 2 years when I know that the draft is in Pittsburgh next year with a highly touted draft class. And I'm not focused on Arch Manning. I'm focused on that draft class. So, what Aaron Rodgers gives us is consistency. First of all, anybody who watches anything about football, especially when you're talking about ACL, MCL injuries, Achilles tendon injuries, knows that a year after you have come from that injury is when you start to really get back to your old self. Now, old self, Aaron Rodgers is old. He's also one of the smartest quarterbacks in the NFL. the year that he had last year, coming off an ACL injury on a bad Jets team, because regardless of the talent that they had, they played bad together. The chemistry didn't work. Okay? And for those of you who don't understand how you can have talent and chemistry and it still not work, refer to the 2000 Washington Redskins, and if you know anything about basketball, the 2004 Los Angeles Lakers. Supremely talented teams, and they just threw pieces together and that didn't work. And Aaron Rodgers played a lot better in the second half of the season after he got used to seeing defense again and getting swing at things again and back into his groove and healing. People also seem to forget that he had a knee and a hamstring injury he was playing through at the end of last year too. Yeah, did you know that? No, you probably didn't know that, but I pay attention to what other people are saying. And he made no excuses about that. So I expect him to be decent. We haven't had decent quarterback play since Roethlisberger's initial return from his elbow surgery. And speaking of Ben Roethlisberger, I got a bone to pick about what he said about Aaron Rodgers and not being that good, because when you come back from the second year of an injury, you may feel healthy, but then you realize you don't have it no more. First things first, Ben Roethlisberger had an elbow injury. He had an elbow injury. That on his throwing arm. So of course you're not going to be the same. Of course you're not going to be the same. Aaron Rodgers doesn't have an elbow injury. Second of all, as great as Ben was, and I love Ben, he is not anywhere near as cerebral as Aaron Rodgers has been. Because Ben Roethlisberger had so much confidence in his arm that he would put that ball in harm's way too many times in too many critical situations. As clutch as he was, he could have got us to more wins in critical situations if he wouldn't have made some of the decisions that he's made. I was just watching the game the other day while I was working out. In 2014, Pittsburgh Steelers versus the Oakland Raiders. Watch that game. And Ben Roethlisberger is scrambling. He rolls to the left and throws the ball to the flat, one-on-one coverage to the receiver, and the defensive player was right there. He throws it right to him, when he could have either took it and ran or took the sack or threw it out of bounds and saved it for now. He does that type of stuff all the time. Second of all, that elbow injury that he had is a significant part of his game, even if he wasn't as mobile as he was before. You cannot compare that to Aaron Rodgers and a leg injury, because Aaron Rodgers' arms is still one of the top 10 arms in the NFL. Second of all, he playing with a way more stable organization. Now, you can argue that the Jets' offensive line is better than the Steelers' offensive line last year. However, potentially, especially with Broderick Jones being moved back to left tackle, we don't know how good this offensive line could be, because you still got to remember, we have 2 top 20 first-round tackles on our roster. And Zach Frazier at center has already shown that he's ready to be a Pro Bowl center. Matt McCormick? This guy was a 4th-round pick, and he came in with some fanfare or draft pedigree because of his skill set, but he wasn't supposed to be playing. He was supposed to be developing behind James Daniels, and he had to go in because Daniels got hurt. And at times he played well, and at times he showed that he needed to develop more. So what did you want him to do? So you can expect him, after a year in the weight room, after a year studying field, after a year with the acclimation of the NFL game under his belt, that he's going to get better. Now, that's a bold assumption, but it's a calculated one. It's a calculated one. And after playing a year together, of throwing all them pieces of parts together, a rookie center, a misplaced left tackle. Now you got a right tackle who spent the whole year out, but he was ready to come back in the playoffs, so he's been healthy since the end of the season, right? A 4th-round guard at right guard, who was supposed to be in a development year, and he got thrusted into the starting lineup. And our left guard was coming off of a chest injury. That who knows, just like the year when TJ Watt had the pectoral injury. They said he was never the same. He was never the same. The rest of that year. He played the rest of that year with one arm. So a lot of times when we're doing all this talking and all this yapping off at the mouth on YouTube videos and on sports websites like Bleacher Report, and we're throwing out all these expletives and talking about the players like we know exactly what you show that you don't know anything about football. You're not taking all of the factors into consideration. It's not excuses, it's factors. If my foot hurts, I'm not going to be able to run as fast as I normally run because my foot hurts. It's just common sense. It's common sense. If I've been away from something from a year, to expect me to step right back into it, not only after I've been away from it a year, but coming off an injury where my body has to get used to the rigors. You see what I'm saying? And what's amazing me is us as fans, we can expect that out of each other. Because like I said before, a lot of us as fathers, and we're working jobs and got things going on, and we don't sit around all day reviewing tapes. But these people like Keyshawn Johnson and LaShawn McCoy, who I don't understand, great running back, horrible analyst, and Joy Taylor, I used to really like Joy, but now she's talking out the side of her neck. Out the side of her neck about sports. She is talking out of the side of her neck. And Ryan Clark, this guy's wishy-washy to me. Wishy-washy. How is he gonna look? What would you say would take a 10-17 that was 10-3 at one point and leading the division for them to be a Super Bowl contender? Now, it wasn't like when Pittsburgh was 10-3 at that particular point that there were people in the media, the same wishy-washy people that was saying, that Pittsburgh definitely has a shot at the Super Bowl. They have a shot at the Super Bowl. What? Now you flipping because they went through a skid. Now identify the reasons how they went through the skid. During the first 8 to 10 games, that defense spent an extreme amount of time on the football field. TJ Watt was getting double teamed, sometimes chipped twice. And the offenses were allocating a lot of help to TJ Watt's side. Alex Highsmith couldn't beat him. And even when he was getting pressure on him, there were some deficiencies in the linebacking corps. Second of all, Dante Jackson, which he's not a good man corner, played the last half of the year with back spasms, on and off. How many times did you see Dante Jackson going on and off the field, coming back on and off the field? Now, with a deficiency like that, and a team that likes to play man coverage, you expect Minkah Fitzpatrick to take risks and come up closer to the line of scrimmage to try to make all these splash plays and leave the defense wide open for bombs. So if you notice what happened to the Steelers defense, a lot of times in the latter half of the year, they were getting drove on down the field. They weren't getting beat by big plays. They were getting drove on down the field. Why do you think that is? Think about what you're watching when you watch sports. Think about this type of stuff. Now, I'm not really understanding. Some of you all just show up the game to just be looking at stuff, and you don't even understand what you're looking at. And nobody's making excuses. Things were terrible, but why? Think about Patrick Queen being given the green dot, coming into a defense that he had never played before, stand on the field twice as long. They led the league, or close to led the league, in minutes played by a defense. The Steelers ranked second to last in the league in drives by an offense that lasted the least. They first drives in 22 yards, and only New England was worse. They had like the 26th rated offense in the league. Think about that. While you got sucked in by moonballs, and so did I, you have to come to the realization of what actually transpired. So to say that Aaron Rodgers is not going to be better than that, coming off an Achilles injury and missing the game for a whole year with no action, not being hit, not running around, not looking at defenses, not being in the face of pressure, and throwing 28 touchdowns, 13 interceptions behind. People say that Jets defense is good, and the Steelers put up points against them. The Pittsburgh Steelers, that same team who we know we got that garbage offense with no weapons, put up 30 plus points on the New York Jets. Great defense. Think about that. You should think about that when you think about whether or not Pittsburgh, with an average quarterback play, like a quarterback that's smart enough to get rid of the ball, a quarterback that's smart enough to hit the open man, a quarterback that's smart enough to go to the check down when the check down is there, a quarterback that's smart enough to get to the line of scrimmage, change the plays into the correct play, a quarterback that can see over the defense and hit players in the middle of the field, a quarterback that still has a rocket arm that can throw the ball deep, and utilize his weapons. Yeah, he's not the athlete that he used to be, but he doesn't have to run away from everybody. He doesn't have to run away from everybody. If the Steelers' offensive line improves from a 23rd overall offensive line to the 14th overall offensive line, if we get running backs that actually can hit the hole in a system that's built for him and not trying to put square pegs in round holes, then you don't think that we're going to be better. You don't think that a lot of those 13-10 games might turn now into 21-10 games, 21-17 games, 28-17 games. I don't care what you say. I don't care what you say. You do realize that the Steelers did beat the Baltimore Ravens last year, right? They did beat the Cincinnati Bengals last year. They did beat the Chargers. They did beat the Broncos, all playoff teams. They beat them. They should have beat the Cowboys. So, in my conclusion, listen, Aaron Rodgers is a good pickup. We had a good draft and was necessary to trade George Pickens. The next time I see you all, we'll talk more about whether or not we need another wide receiver number 2. We'll talk about Jalen Ramsey, and I guess we'll talk about Jonnu Smith. Peace out. This is Bishop Ball.